The time of great upheaval, the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a time of great change. It began in 1789 and lasted for 10 years. France was ruled by kings and queens. The people were divided into three groups called estates. The first estate was the clergy. The second estate was the nobility. The third estate was everyone else. The third estate was the largest group. They paid the most taxes. They had the fewest rights. They were unhappy with the way things were. The American Revolution had shown that it was possible to fight for freedom. The ideas of the Enlightenment were spreading throughout Europe. These ideas emphasized reason, individual liberty, and the rights of man. In 1789, King Louis XVI called a meeting of the Estates General. He wanted to raise taxes. The Third Estate saw this as an opportunity to demand change. They declared themselves the National Assembly. They wanted to create a new government, one based on equality and representation. The French Revolution was a time of both great hope and great violence. It led to the end of the monarchy in France. It inspired people around the world to fight for their rights. And new ideas take hold, the rise of socialism. The 19th century saw the rise of new ideas that would change the world. One of the most important of these was socialism. Socialism emerged in response to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution led to great changes in the way goods were produced. It also led to great social inequality. Factories were built in cities, drawing people from rural areas to work in them. The conditions in these factories were often terrible. Socialists believed that the means of production should be owned by the people. They argued that this would create a more just and equitable society. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were two of the most important socialist thinkers. They argued that capitalism was inherently exploitative. They called for a revolution to overthrow the capitalist system. Socialist ideas spread rapidly throughout Europe. They led to the formation of political parties and labor unions. Socialists fought for better working conditions, higher wages, and an end to child labor. A revolution in Russia, the Tsar's fall. Russia in the early 20th century was a land of great unrest. The country was ruled by a Tsar. The Tsar had absolute power. Most people in Russia were poor peasants. They lived in poverty and had little say in their own government. World War I put a great strain on Russia. The country was ill-prepared for war. Millions of Russians died. In 1917, a revolution broke out in Russia. The Tsar was overthrown. A new government, led by the Bolsheviks, came to power. The Bolsheviks were communists. They were inspired by the ideas of Karl Marx. They believed in a classless society. They wanted to create a socialist state in Russia. The Russian Revolution was a turning point in world history. It led to the creation of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union would become a superpower. It would play a major role in world affairs for decades to come. A dark shadow falls the rise of Hitler and Nazism. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany was in turmoil. The country was defeated and humiliated. Its economy was in ruins. The German people were looking for someone to blame for their problems. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party offered them an answer. Hitler was a powerful and charismatic speaker. He appealed to German nationalism. He blamed the Jews for Germany's problems. He promised to restore Germany to its former glory. The Nazi Party grew in popularity. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. He quickly moved to consolidate his power. He banned all other political parties. He established a totalitarian state. The Nazis persecuted Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, and anyone else they considered undesirable. They launched World War II, plunging the world into another global conflict. The Nazis' crimes led to the deaths of millions of people. The Holocaust, the genocide of European Jews, was one of the darkest chapters in human history. Section 5. The impact of colonialism, India under British rule. For centuries, India was ruled by the British Empire. The British East India Company established a foothold in India in the 18th century. Over time, they gained more and more control. By the mid-19th century, Britain had direct control over most of India. The British exploited India's resources and people for their own benefit. They introduced new technologies and systems of administration. They also brought their own language, culture, and values to India. British rule had a profound impact on Indian society. It led to the development of new industries. It also led to the displacement of traditional ways of life. Many Indians resisted British rule. The Indian National Congress was founded in 1885 to fight for Indian independence. Section 6. Life in the forest changes for forest societies. British colonialism had a significant impact on forest societies in India. The British saw forests as a valuable resource. They wanted to exploit them for timber and other products. They enacted laws and policies that gave them control over forests. This often brought them into conflict with forest-dwelling communities. These communities had lived in the forests for centuries. The British forest policies often led to the displacement of forest communities. They were forced to leave their homes and traditional ways of life. This led to the impoverishment of many forest dwellers. They lost access to the resources they depended on for their livelihoods. Section 7. The game of cricket. From colonial past to national pride. Cricket was introduced to India by the British. It quickly became popular. Indians embraced the game. They developed their own unique style of play. Cricket became a symbol of Indian nationalism. Indians used cricket to challenge British dominance. One of the most famous examples of this was the formation of the Indian Cricket Club of Bombay in 1848. The club was open only to Indians. It was a direct challenge to the British-only clubs. In 1947, India gained independence from Britain. Cricket continued to play an important role in Indian society. India has produced some of the greatest cricketers of all time. Section 8. The fabric of society. A look at clothing in India. Clothing in India has always been more than just a way to cover the body. It has been a way to express one's identity, social status, and cultural beliefs. Traditional Indian clothing varies widely from region to region. It reflects the diversity of the country's cultures and traditions. During the colonial period, British clothing styles had an influence on Indian fashion. Many Indians adopted Western clothing. After independence, there was a renewed interest in traditional Indian clothing. Today, Indian clothing is a vibrant mix of the traditional and the modern. Section 9. Conclusion. Reflecting on the past, shaping the future. The historical events we have explored, from the French Revolution to the rise of Nazism to the impact of colonialism on India, have shaped the world we live in today. By understanding the past, we can better understand the present and make more informed decisions about the future. We must learn from the mistakes of the past. We must strive to create a more just and equitable world for all.